Welcome to the Single Father Podcast. I am your host, Kendall Donaker. This podcast is dedicated for anyone out there who's dealing with mental health and fatherhood. You'll hear about my struggles, my defeats, my victories, my highs, my lows, my triumphs, my tribulations, and everything in between. I like to call this a collection of journal entries into my struggle and adapting to single fatherhood. Without further ado, let's take a look inside my journal, the Single Father Podcast. I have an amazing guest on today's episode. Her name is Brittany Bennett. She went to college with me up in UNR, and she's very open and kind-hearted. And when I was speaking with her, it took me a while to get her on the show, first of all, because of scheduling and COVID. But the fact that she was able to kind of share as much as she did with me today is just so amazing. I mean, when you get to listen to her, you really get to see, like, oh my gosh, you truly conquered adversity. I mean, everything that she went through it's a lot. It's a lot for any person to handle, especially in college. And, the fact that she's still here and standing tall is really impressive. And I learned a lot from her. I always say, you know somebody until you really know them. And I really feel like I got to know Brittany on a deeper personal level, which is amazing to get to, be more familiar with your friends. This season has been really amazing as we get close to wrapping up season 2 of VentPack. Just everyone that I had on the podcast and spreading mental health awareness has been really great. And, I've gotten some excellent feedback from a lot of people on what to do moving forward, which has been amazing. And, keeping this moving on and seeing what's next in regards to this is really, it's something that I really look forward to. One of the comments I've gotten was, hey, I think you have a lisp. I knew that already, but thanks for sharing. What's weird about that is I actually developed a lisp later in life. So I really didn't have one when I was younger. But yeah, I developed one now at 25. I mean, I've had it for a while, but some people actually like it. So there you go. Well, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's vent. Hey, Brittany.
Hi.
Hey, hi. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
That's okay. We got it figured out.
Exactly. That's what happens when I'm not rich and can't afford people to do it for me.
No, this is a cool app. I like it.
It's pretty rad, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy I finally get you on here. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, it has. Definitely.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling a ton better. Yeah, definitely a ton better. I have some more tests to do this week, but physically right now I feel okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
I myself was feeling a little like under the weather because I had COVID
Yeah.
like about 2 months ago.
Uh-huh.
And then I guess like you can like get reinfected with it. And so I think I got it again. And then they said they're not sure if like you actually have it or if it's just like this leftover symptoms.
Oh,
But
okay. Interesting. Yeah, there's so much stuff like we don't know about it right now. They just all the data, they're just trying to test everything and figure everything out right now.
right? Yeah. And it's sometimes I get frustrated when people are just like, oh, it'll just go away. I'm like, well, you don't know. No one knows. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's just so much up in the air and so much we don't know about it. I live in Arizona. I live in like just around a ton of retirement communities.
Mhm.
And I worked at a country club in one of them, and so far 3 of the people that lived there that I served for like months died of COVID.
Oh man.
And so there's some people that they can't get COVID. They can't even get the flu or they'll die. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad.
You know what? You're right on too, because it sucks because especially with older people, I've been trying to avoid being around my grandmother. And so I video chat her a lot more than is humanly possible, but
That's good.
but yeah, so we do a lot of video chat because I feel bad. I'm like, she just lives in a retirement home, and
Oh.
I don't see her often. So
Exactly, and I know they shut off, like, visitation for a while there. I don't know if anyone's opened back up.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you just can't. So it's just it's rough. And plus, like, my grandmother called me today, and she's like, "Hey, can I use your car to like go get groceries?" And I'm like,
Yo.
and I'm just like, oh, I don't know. So
Yeah, you're like, "I don't know if this is a good idea."
yeah, I had to think about it. It
Yeah, she could do
sounds awful.
the delivery service. There's, like, a like, Shop, or Shop something, Shop and Go, I think, I don't know, and then Walmart does delivery, I know at least here, I don't know about in Reno.
Right? Yeah. You want to know what she said to me though? It made absolutely no sense at all. She said, because I spoke to her about that. I'm like, oh, there's like delivery services and things like that. Because sometimes I'll order off of like Amazon and they'll deliver to my house.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, but I just want to go to the store so I know what I'm gonna get. So when I do order it, I'm like, what? So,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, I don't know.
yeah, like doesn't make any sense. But all right.
Whatever hurts, whatever hurts.
Yeah. but but anyways, I'm happy I can speak to you
Mhm.
and then I know I spoke to you briefly, but I just want to tell you what this podcast means to me. And
Yeah.
so it's about spreading mental health awareness. And with me personally, I've dealt with some mental health issues within my family and
Mhm.
within myself as well. And I suffer from a lot of anxiety. I've had depression before in the past and things like that. And number one, men don't usually speak about a lot of these issues.
Yeah.
And I always bring it up, but I tried to talk to my friend about something not too long ago. I said, this and this and this happened to me, and his response was, "Oh man, that's crazy." So,
Ah,
so we didn't have like a kind of what I was looking for cover,
yeah.
and
Oh.
but I'm really open about these things, and
Mhm.
one of the things that I wanted to do is I started a little long ago, a little while ago, but I brought it back up again, and I've been speaking to a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists and things like that,
Awesome.
just to get an idea of what mental health is and what it means, and kind of spread that awareness. And um,
Yeah.
another thing I wanted to do is speak to just real people, like college students and like yourself, and
Mhm.
you and I are friends, and I wanted to just speak to you about mental health and maybe share a little bit of yourself. And I mean,
Yeah.
I, have you ever experienced any troubles with mental health in the past, or have anyone else that you know who went through it? Or
Yeah, so definitely. So, first I think it's like awesome what you're doing. Like I think this needs to be talked about, and the more it's talked about, the more normalized it is, the more education we have towards it. Like it's just a ripple effect of good. Um, but for me, right now I'm struggling with anxiety and depression. Um, I was diagnosed with PTSD last June, and I was diagnosed again, I guess confirmed again, about a month ago.
really?
And then my mom suffered from bipolar disorder. So those are the mental health issues that I like have first cedars to, I guess. And those are the ones, and then the 3 that I mentioned that I struggle with.
So with going through like PTSD and things like that, is it something that you sought out to like learn if you have, or was it just like after therapy session? I mean, did you go through therapy or?
Yeah, so I was living in San Diego, and then I moved back to Reno and finished my degree at UNR, let me think, in 2018. And as soon as I got back, I started seeing a substance abuse counselor, down, by the lake. I can't remember the building name, but anyways, and so I was seeing her, and then finally about a year in, I just, like, was having a lot of issues, and I asked her if I could get or screened for bipolar disorder because bipolar is genetic.
Mhm.
So she actually sent me to the head of the psychology department at UNR, and that lady, I can't remember her name either, but she specializes and, like, deals with a lot of bipolar patients, especially on UNR's campus. And so she screened me, and she wasn't able to diagnose me, but she sent me to the psychiatrist at the student health center. And after like testing with him and just a lot of assessments with him, he was able to diagnose me with PTSD. So I didn't even know, like, my vision or like how I look at PTSD is like kind of soldiers or sexual assault victims, things like that. And I never really thought I had it. And then he was able to diagnose me very quickly. He wasn't able to diagnose me with bipolar disorder, which I mean, I guess I was glad about. I just wanted to know why I was having panic attacks without even like knowing why. You know what I mean? They would come about randomly. One time, like there was a week where my heart was racing for like 7 days straight
Mm,
when I was sleeping, right when I woke up. And I was just like, this is not normal. So it was really random, honestly, getting diagnosed with PTSD and then kind of dealing with that, I guess.
yeah, you're speaking true to me because when I was younger and I first experienced, my anxiety disorder, that would be
Mhm.
something that happened to me a lot too. Like my heart would be racing like all the time,
Yeah.
and it was at a point where, my parents would even get frustrated at me because I'd continuously want to go to I would get my heart checked out all the time.
Yeah.
So anyone who has some sort of anxiety or has had a panic attack, you kind of know like it feels like you're either dying or there's something wrong with your heart.
Yeah.
So a lot of people get that confused. So I really thought something was wrong with my heart for a long time, and it really took a massive reality check just to say, oh, you have an anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
And I almost wanted it to be like something wrong with my heart just so it's like it made more sense to me. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's a physical thing that you can touch, that we know about, that you can cure, you know what I mean? That's
Exactly.
like the issue with like anxiety and depression is they're invisible disabilities. So you can't see it right away, you can't diagnose it. Like the average person that like now they're saying they used to have those charts in doctors' offices like years ago that like on a scale of 0 to 10 and like it how it would have a really sad face all the way up to a really happy face,
Right.
but that's just such a bad depiction of what depression looks like because you can be the happiest person in the world, seem happy to everyone around you, and really struggle with like massive depression
Mm,
or anxiety.
you're so right. I spoke to someone about this the other day, and it was like, yo, look at like Robin Williams. Like this guy was
Mhm.
the funniest. You would think he's so happy, and he was struggling with some dark demons as well. And
Yep.
I think people kind of put on that happy face, maybe to sometimes even fool themselves. Because sometimes I know that
Mhm.
like I have to ask myself, am I depressed? I think maybe I'm depressed because it's like
Yeah.
to everyone else, I feel I'm probably happy go lucky the guy, but like, inside it's like, I'm feeling kind of depressed. I'm feeling sad. And you know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah, and it's frustrating too, like with anxiety and depression specifically, like a lot of the times it's brought about just randomly, or maybe it's a subconscious trigger that you don't know about.
Right.
That's where I was like struggling because it would come about randomly and like things that I shouldn't get anxiety over, things I shouldn't be depressed about. Sometimes I would have my depressive spouts like during really high and happy times in my life, like when a lot of good things were
Hmm.
happening to me. And I'm just like, why like can I not leave my bed right now? I had like there were days like I wouldn't be able to leave my bed for like 3 days, 4 days, you know?
Mm,
And at first I thought I was just lazy,
right.
honestly.
Right.
And then they're like, no, you have depression.
Isn't that funny? We're so alike because I used to go through that. So I used to feel like, man, am I just fucking lazy? And African Americans sometimes like have like anemia. So I'm like, man,
Okay.
I really thought maybe I was anemic, which kind of brings your mood down a little bit and makes you kind of like weak and tired. I'm like, that can be the
Yeah.
only explanation I can think of to why I feel so groggy all the time. And I went to the doctor, like, man, you're not anemic. I think you're just depressed.
You're just
Yeah,
depressed.
yeah. I'm like, wow, what a reality check.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a hard to
Yeah,
face.
it really is. I definitely didn't believe it. I remember so when I came moved in to Arizona. I moved in with my sister and her husband. And when I moved here, I was like, "Yeah, Niche, like I got diagnosed with anxiety." And she's like laughs, like, and I'm like, "What's so funny?" She's like, "Yeah, I know. Like you didn't know that?" And so it's just kind of funny, like what our perception of like our own mental health is compared to like the people closest to us too.
Right.
And because she knew right, like knows that I struggle with anxiety before I even knew,
Mm,
you know. And so it's just interesting because like especially in college, and like this is kind of like where my addiction started was using alcohol to cope with the social anxiety. You know what I mean? And that's really where it started for me. Um, but in college, it's normal. It's normal to drink. It's normal to go downtown. It's normal to go to a crawl. It's normal to go out on the weekends, to go to the frat houses, whatever it may be. And it's so normalized, which is, I don't think that's a negative thing. I think people should live their life how they want. You know what I mean?
right.
Um, but me making that my normal, when my bar due to my genetics were already set high for addiction,
Hmm.
my cup overflowed almost immediately after I got to college, you know what I mean, and started doing the college drinking thing.
It's so hard to recognize when you have a problem when it's kind of you're in a normal setting in regards to that.
Mhm.
I 100% agree. You know, when I got to college, I was really depressed myself, and I coped with it mostly just by kind of just being an asshole. Like I was an asshole guy that just drank a lot, and but
Yeah.
but you're right. It's so normalized to just go out and drinking all the time, and
Mhm.
not only can that be an escape for your problems, but it's a it's kind of welcomed by your friends because especially in Reno, which is such a college town, that's all there really is to
Yeah.
do is go to bars and things like that.
Yep,
And so tell
exactly.
me about like how did you know it became like kind of a problem for you?
Well, I actually have been talking about this a lot recently. I call it the line that I crossed.
Hmm.
And so
Sounds
the
like a
thing
book.
was, yeah, right? Oh, hey, I like that because I actually am like considering that writing a book in my future, distant future.
You should.
But yes. So anyways, so I was in college doing the college thing, blah blah blah. And 2015 my dad passed away, and then 2 months later my grandfather passed away, and my grandfather raised me.
Mm,
So, and at first, I was really strong about it. I've dealt with death in the past. It was difficult, but I was just really just overdriving my system, just trying to get ahead of like distraction wise. So that summer, I ended up moving to San Diego to be with a now ex. And there was an incident where I was alone, and it was on my grandfather's birthday and also my mother's death date 5 years ago. So
wow.
it was August 27th, 2016, and it was a heavy day for me. And I drank so much that I was blackout drunk for 3 days, to the point where I woke up on Sunday, looked at my phone, and I thought my phone satellite like thing was wrong, and that the date on my phone was wrong because I had actually been blackout for 2 whole days. And in the midst of all that, I was in a trailer where a dirt bike had fell on top of me, and I almost died because the handlebars went across my neck and I couldn't breathe.
Oh my god.
But I was so inebriated, I couldn't get it off of me. It was a heavy bike, and I was in a small space. So that should have been my big ol' wake up call, but sure enough, it wasn't. I ended up getting arrested the next year with battery charges, and I was extremely intoxicated during this incident. And so part of my court sentence, I had to do anger management courses. So during my first session, I go to anger management, and she's specializes in gambling addiction, especially. So after my very first session of anger management, she's like, "Yeah, so you don't have an anger problem. You have a drinking problem." And she's like, "What's the longest you've ever been without drinking?" And I was like, "Well, I've never tried." I was like, "Well, I guess 17 years, my first 17 years of life."
Right.
I was like, "But if I tried, I'm sure like I could go for however long I need to." And then so she suggested I try. And then that's when it got worse. I didn't realize I had a problem until I tried to stop drinking.
Mm,
And once I tried, my addiction got worse and deeper, and like the hooks just like slid into me harder, if that makes sense.
yeah.
And then when I realized, after like grasping the realization of like, oh, I actually can't stop if I want to, then it became a severe problem. And it was I'm a blackout drinker. And that's very bad when you have a car and you feel like you're invincible and you're conscious while you're blackout drunk and driving. It was absolutely ridiculous, the things I was doing. It wasn't safe for me, for anyone around me. I hurt the people I loved closest to me. I hurt myself. And so that was definitely the line I crossed. As soon as I got back to Reno, I started seeing that substance abuse counselor. She was absolutely amazing. And then she introduced me to AA, actually on UNR's campus. And AA has been an amazing blessing in my life. And actually, today I'm 85 days sober and working an AA program.
Oof. Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
That I really wanted to hear that. And wow, I mean that's really heavy. That's really a lot to go
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, it was a lot. And then all while getting a degree, like in the last 2 years of my program, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it was a lot, especially when I needed a degree. I wanted a degree, and like it's just hard dealing with like all the classes, all the stress of finals, all the like, especially like it gets so impacted on your like fourth year because everyone needs those classes to graduate. So it was really difficult, definitely, but I scraped by graduating, I feel like.
yeah. Wow. Well, it's impressed that you graduated. Period. Because someone who's going through something like that could have easily just dropped out and forgot about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely like, especially my grandfather, is all he wanted me to do his whole life was for me to graduate, go to college. And so that was like one of my things, is like no matter what I'm doing to myself, I have to graduate, mostly for him, you know what I mean? Like he couldn't see it physically, but I know he was very proud of me for graduating.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
You
that.
know, it's very inspiring to hear you kind of share that, just because sometimes those things are really hard to speak about. Um, and I think, you know, I think a lot of the reasons why I tried to have a reason for like a physical reason why I feel the way that I feel is because I
Mhm.
think sometimes you try to run from the idea of, hey, I'm depressed, because
Mhm.
you kind of don't want to accept that reality, right? It's like, oh, that's not
Exactly.
me. I'm not depressed. I don't have a problem. And
Mhm.
you know, those things are really, you're just living in a constant state of denial, because I think subliminally you recognize, hey, there's a problem, but it's just the more I stay in this spot, the more I stay like here, I won't face my depression. And because I think that's what
Mhm.
we're really scared about. And you know, just kind of listening to you, I mean, it really resonates, because you know I went through a really hard time, especially in college, because I was, like I said, I was just kind of an asshole. I was just working
Yeah.
through some things, and you know, I got in trouble too. And you know, sometimes people look at you a certain way, but I was speaking to someone about this. It's hard to make people kind of see, hey, I was just going through something and I didn't mean to be
Mhm.
that person. That's just kind of, you know, a result of kind of what I was feeling at during that time. You know what I mean?
Ex exactly, 100%. Like, especially with the people I've hurt, a big reason, like, I feel like especially in my addiction, like, one of my triggers is financial stress. And so kind of like really I've screwed over a couple friends, honestly, like especially in my addiction, you know. Um and when I was doing it, I the last thing in my entire life I wanted these people knowing was how bad I was struggling. So you put on this front of I'm just a, like in my for me personally, I put on a front of I'm just a mean person. You know, I deserve this money anyways, you know, and I screwed over a couple friends that way.
Right.
And And like looking back, it's like if I would have just been completely honest with myself, honest with this person sitting right in front of me, hey, I'm struggling with this, this, and this. And like the thing about it is they're humans too. Even if it's something I've definitely felt empowered more so doing like this past year in my life is just being blatantly honest with people and just being truly honest with yourself, which translates the honesty to other people. And honestly, like with professors too, like when I was struggling in my last year, I had a couple professors that I would just go to and I would just tell them, you know what, this is what's going on. I'm not trying to BS you. This is what's going on. And more often than not, those professors, which are humans too, have human problems too, were more than willing to help me and assist me and do what they could um to like help my side and make my side more easeful instead of me just either not turning in that assignment and saying, well, you know what, I'm going through this, this is crap anyways, blah blah blah, and then dealing with a bad grade and then going to the professor. No, you should go to the professor when you have the problem. And I definitely embodied that my last semester of college. And I am still overly grateful for the professors that have helped me that last semester, just with countless things. I feel like honestly, when you get more into your 400 level classes, the professors are nicer anyway.
Definitely. But isn't that funny? It's like the thing that we're most afraid of doing is like the easiest, and it's just being honest and being honest with ourselves and with other people around us. It's such an easy thing to do because I think what you'll find is, which I think you are now finding is people, do understand and they can have empathy at least.
Mhm. Exactly, 100%. I mean, like now, just like so I had to take COVID leave off because my sister got COVID,
Hmm.
and I work with immunosuppressant patients at my job, so I couldn't risk infecting them. So I was off for a while, and then this emergency gallbladder surgery I had 2 weeks ago, and instead of just taking an L and like losing this job, I went to my boss and was just completely honest with him about everything that's going on. And sure enough, my boss is more than happy to help me in any way he can. And it just comes with just being honest. Like I know those are those issues, but I kind of want to share something that happened for me to get re-diagnosed with my PTSD. That was a huge breakthrough, I feel like, in my like mental health awareness.
Yeah.
And so what was it in May? I was sitting in my office and we hear this loud crash and we're like, crap, what is going on? We run outside and one of our patients had accidentally stepped on the gas instead of the brake and like jumped the curb and ran through a wall.
Oh
And
gosh.
basically we're the first ones on the scene. We are trying to get our patient out of the passenger side. He's yelling at us to go to the driver's side. I look across and basically her radius and her ulna were completely just snapped in half. And so her arm was just hanging there and dangling
Oh
there.
wow.
And like discretion advised. But anyways, and so like all of us kind of go into shock and we're all like in the medical profession. So we just do whatever we can. So I go over to her side, I'm getting her out, and I have to grab her arm because you're supposed to place it in a certain spot so nothing else happens. I'm literally watching her arm change from blue to black to red to white
Oh.
because the muscles are just morphed and the blood is just not moving right. Also, the blood is leaking out all the bones. So, anyways, so we're all in shock. Anyways, we get them to the hospital. They're good to go. She has the surgery that she's 100% fine. Everything ended up being fine with them. But after that, I had my a panic attack. I had a panic attack that day. I had a panic attack the next day and the next day after that. And my heart was racing for probably 4 days. And I just could not shake what had happened. It didn't even happen to me. But just what I saw kind of triggered me. And so I went into work and, I'm like shaking still from what had happened 4 days earlier. And I just was I sat down with my boss and I was like, okay, here's the thing. I was diagnosed with PTSD last year. I don't have health insurance right now. I haven't been seeing a therapist. I'm really struggling. I don't think I can work today. Like, I'm not having a good time, and I'm having a lot of panic issues right now. And he went out of his way. He could have easily just, I don't know, like, fired me, or he could have been not empathetic at all. He could have been like the least human person ever. But him being a person was able to reach out to his connections and get me a therapist without health insurance. He was able to bump up my health insurance because I was on a probation period. I had just started, to where I was able to get my health insurance early so I could start seeing a therapist.
That's awesome.
And all these things happened just because I was able to be honest with him and let him know, like, hey, I can't come into work today. No, I'm not hungover. No, not this. No, I'm not sick. I'm just have a really bad anxiety right now. And just able, like, now then I was able to get the resources I needed. And it's really, that's what it takes. And after the first time you go, or you're able to talk about those hard things, the second time is that much easier, and the third time that much easier, and it never gets harder.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It only gets easier
Oh
to
wow,
talk about.
that's that's a really deep thing that you brought up. And it's so important that you brought it up too, because
Mhm,
I think people can really underestimate kind of the power of your mental health. And I
mhm.
think a lot of people will brush it off. I've had people tell me before, hey man, just man up. Well,
Mhm.
maybe it's not about manning up. Maybe it's just I can't. Maybe it's just I need more help than what's available to me, if that makes sense.
Exactly, 100%, definitely.
And sometimes you really can't go through it alone, and it's nice to get that help. And I'm so happy that you got that from your boss, because
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that's kind of um looked at in a wrong way, is this therapy. I think it's so healthy for people to get therapy, whether it's couples therapy, whether it's personal therapy or behavioral therapy. I think just
Mhm.
being able to have that therapeutic resource available to you is just so important. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has the tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
I honestly highly suggest everyone gets a therapist. Like, it without question, honestly, like, and then the more normalized everyone having a therapist or seeing a counselor is, the better all of our mental health is going to be, just in general.
Right.
Even if it's just the awareness of what my mental health issues are, that's one step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And you're right about that. 'Cause sometimes it's just being aware of kind of what you are going through. I had this
Mhm.
situation happen to me that I bring up a lot, but I think it was really a defining moment into recognizing some of the things that were there for me. Um, I so I don't have a good relationship with my mother at all. I haven't spoke to her in a couple years. And I had this friend. Well, I won't say his name, but I had this friend, and he's a good looking dude, and a lot of ladies liked him, and I would always try to um hook him up with different people. And but there'd be a problem where he he would ruin certain relationships because of the relationship with his mother, and he would always have such a deep personal relationship with his mom. But and I felt like maybe it was overbearing at a certain point. I'm like, dude, you're sitting here texting your mom, and there's a girl over there who's eyeballing you. Like, dude, get real. And then we ended up having like an argument one time, just about the relationship with his mom and things like that. And it really was a defining moment in that friendship, because I said some things that went too far. And
Mhm.
but I was pissed at him, and I spoke to my therapist about it, and then she's like, well, what are you really pissed about? Are you pissed that, you didn't follow your advice, or are you pissed that he has a special connection with his mom and you don't? Yeah.
There you go.
And that's kind of what did it for me. I was like, wow,
You're like, crap.
yeah. And it hurt me because I'm like, that's actually what it was, I guess. And you don't realize those things,
Mhm.
Sometimes you need extra help to kind of identify the things that are going on with you that maybe you can't identify on your own.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. One like just kind of rule of thumb is like the qualities that you or that bug you or that bother you the most in other people are usually something that you struggle with internally.
Right.
Like we're always projecting and we never realize it. We always think we're the right one in all the situations. Like this person did this to me. Well, what was my part in it?
Right.
Did I do anything? Did my maybe jealousy influence how I felt about that situation?
Right.
Um, I'm really grateful for the AA community and just the steps that I'm working because one of the big things we do is a resentment list and really getting down to the exact cause, the part I play, and um, uh, what, like, we kind of look at the seven deadly sins and like, what exactly did that stem from? And when I'm writing my resentment list, I'm, like, oh, I hate this person, whatever. But now I'm like tracking it all backwards, you know? And a lot of my issues have stemmed from me being jealous of these people, jealous that people can drink normally, jealous of people that have maybe this financial safety net from family members, things of that sort. And then I realized that the issues I had with those people are really just because I'm jealous that they have something that I want. And now everything they do is making me mad.
So how did they teach you to kind of cope with that? Because like sometimes I have the same issues, like, people who have like these awesome parents and they're really supportive. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like,
Mhm.
of course I'm a little jealous because I'm like, man, I don't have that, and
Mhm.
it bugs you, right? You're like, I'm kind of irritated with you, but it's not you. So I mean, like, how do they teach you to kind of work through that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, AA is a very spiritual program. And we believe in a God of our understanding. So I really love that about the program because it's not one God that's defined by an entity or institution. It's what we define in ourselves as our God greater than ourselves. And so really, honestly, it's just prayer and meditation. Praying a big one is I think it's our fourth step prayer is praying for those who are still sick. So sick can mean like this person cut me off. They I'm gonna pray for them. They're still sick. Or maybe when someone wrongs you, or even when or like for your example, for when people aren't doing anything wrong and they just have something you want. For like me, it's people having like the safety net from parents. You know what I mean? I'm so jealous of these people that when something goes wrong, I can just call mommy, daddy up and now they have a new car, whatever it is.
Right.
So that person never did anything wrong. They are absolutely just living their life and they're not doing anything to wrong me. So something that I do personally is praying for myself. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like praying that for my sickness and that I'm able to overcome that. And even if I'm not able to overcome the jealousy, just the fact that I stated I am jealous of this person for XYZ, now I have completely like mastered the first step in that process of overcoming that. Even if you don't overcome over that, it's like one of the things we say is it's progress, not perfection. It's just you're constantly working on it. Meditation is a constant practice. Prayer is a constant practice. Uh, but the first step is realizing what the problem is, what your triggers are, why I'm jealous of this person. You know what I mean? Things of that sort.
Mm, mm. I like that, because when I was like my journey to become a better person, when I realized like, hey, I need to change, like I got baptized. But I had
Mhm.
this idea when I got baptized. I had this idea that all the negative things that were in my body and all the negative things that I've ever done would just be wiped away. Suddenly all of the friends that I've wronged would suddenly like me, and suddenly all the guilt that I feel would just be I guess, a distant dream, right?
Yeah.
And when I got baptized, I was so surprised that none of those things kind of happened, right? But it's
Mhm.
more of a journey and not like a light switch. And that's been my progression, is just making steps at bettering myself. And a lot of it comes from prayer, a lot of it comes from meditation, and a lot of it comes from um maybe just like self-care. Maybe, hey, do I need to talk to someone? Maybe I'll talk to someone. And if it's therapy, it's therapy. And if it's a huge step that I had to take in my life recently was medication. And
Mhm.
I was always super against it when I was little because, I like going to the gym. And if I take Xanax, I feel sluggish. And,
Mhm.
um, TMI, but like, hey, I like having sex. And, antidepressants, they ruin a man's sex drive.
Yeah,
And so those were some of the things that were so unappealing, but it was a step that I really had to take, and it was a big step for me, but it ended up being what I needed. And some of those things are kind of just sacrificing your own selfishness for the better of yourself, if that makes sense.
exactly. That makes perfect sense. For me with medication, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's huge. There's a huge stigma against it. And I think that's where my problem was after I got diagnosed with PTSD, I was prescribed a medication and I was so against trying them, taking them. I think I ended up building up the courage to take my first one and I was just like drowsy and out of it and spacey that day. And I was just like, nope, not for me. Well, fast forward a year later, getting a confirmation on my diagnosis of PTSD, I still have that medication, and I think it's just like it's an anti-anxiety, antidepressant.
Right.
Uh, and so I was like, you know what? I'm really struggling right now, and I don't think there's anything worse I could do. So I might as well just try to stick with them because they do take like 3-ish weeks to even see any effects.
Right.
So I started taking them and I mean, you're not supposed to notice the huge differences. That's not what if they're about. They're not supposed to make drastic changes in your life. They're supposed to even you out. They're supposed to, for mine specifically, are supposed to raise my lows so that way I'm not hitting this deep, deep low sporadically,
Exactly.
and give me more time to look at my lows and prepare for what's coming and things of that sort. So I've been on my medication since June, and I am so grateful. I definitely noticed I'm crying less, which I think might be a good thing because my life's too full of tears right now. Uh,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, no, I'm so glad I was able to kind of overcome that and take that step to start taking those again, or to start taking those. Because I really don't know if I would be able to stay sober, deal with all these heavy things that have happened these past 2 months, with these really low, deep lows that I would have in my depression, and then these anxiety spouts. So they really helped me a ton.
It's interesting when you bring up those deep lows, because that's something that I experienced as well. Because you're absolutely right. The antidepressants and things like that. You're not supposed to just be like, oh, I'm the happiest person in the world, and I notice it, right?
Mm.
Like, it's
Exactly.
like someone will tell you, oh, like, it seems like you're in a really better mood lately, and you're like, oh, I didn't even notice I was, right? But
Exactly.
it's interesting that you say that, because I would have these lows, but they were like almost beyond lows. They'd be like these paralyzing
Mm.
numb moments where it's like almost a PTSD thing. Like, I'll remember like kind of a flashback of like something that happened to me, and I'll just be paralyzed. I'll be numb, and it's like my
Mhm.
whole body just sinks, and it's a really uncomfortable feeling. And I realized that I need to take that extra step, especially because I have a child. So I'm
Mhm.
playing with my child, and I'll have like this random flashback, and I'm just numb, and I'm depressed, and I can't move. Like, it's like, how can I be a parent like that? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it really is crippling. And so, after I took this medication, it's like, like, again, it's not so noticeable, but I notice that I'm not falling into that hole again. And I think that's
Mhm.
all that you kind of want, really, is just to not completely fall, and then you can just look at things rationally and be like, okay, well, maybe maybe I can take a step back, or maybe I can wait 42 hours before you know what I mean? It's like
Exactly.
sometimes you feel crazy when you go through something like that.
No, exactly. And like I said, I'm grateful that I was able to get my hands on a therapist that was able to find the right medication for me, you know what I mean? Like cuz like you said, those loads are you're right, absolutely crippling. And especially when they kind of come out of nowhere, when they come right before finals, you know,
Right.
things of that sort, and it's so frustrating
Mm.
to deal with. And yeah, I'm glad that I don't have to reach those lows anymore, because the things that I've dealt with after taking this medication consistently, I don't think I would be able to handle. Like honestly, uh, with the medication, it just like it's just heavy, a lot of heavy stuff, and just being able to take that second to look at the situation. The medication allows me to do that, and I'm grateful. And the thing about medication is pairing it with therapy to kind of unload
Yes,
this bag you have.
absolutely.
Because the goal is to not be on this medication your whole life, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it should definitely be an assist with what you're going through right now, and it's definitely assisting me with what I'm going through right now.
So, what are some other things that you've been trying as well? My child's mother has been introducing to me to, which is it's been tough to get into because I've never dealt with that before.
Mhm.
But she's been introducing me to, like, stones and crystals and energy and things
Yeah.
like that. What have you been doing to kind of also better yourself on top of those things?
Yeah, definitely. So, when I was in Reno, I actually went to a Reiki healer. I believe it was off, I can't remember, Prater, or it was off 4th Street, I think. But anyways, and so that was really nice. It's really only for people who believe kind of energy is this thing. Like bad energy can be harbored in the body and it causes physical issues, things of that sort. If you really believe that energy can be manipulated that way, um, then I would say energy healing. That has been huge for me. I had a session with an energy healer that does more uh, epigenetics and DNA work, and I was able to talk with her and kind of clear some stuff that was going on with my family history. As far as crystals and things, I haven't. My brother is really into crystals, and but I don't know too much about it. It would have to be something I would look into. And then one of my sisters is a foot zoner. And if anyone hasn't tried foot zoning, do it. Like your feet have all of the nerve endings that are linked to your whole body and your whole aura. And so one of the amazing things is like she'll be foot zoning me whenever I'm able to make it up to Idaho to have a session with her and visit her. And she'll press on a pressure point, a certain nerve, and I'll be like, "Oh, that hurt." And then she'll look at me and she'll say, have you been facing, a heavy decision lately that's weighing heavy on you and this and that? And I'm like, yeah, actually, exactly. All of that. Or one time I was having some bladder issue and she pushed on a certain nerve. I was like, oh, that hurts. And she's like, is anything going on with your bladder recently? And I'm like, yes.
Mm,
Like right on the money, you know what I mean? And so foot zoning is a way to like kind of release this bad energy. Like same with acupuncture, same with cupping, fire cupping. I have seen firsthand like the benefits of those. I haven't tried acupuncture or cupping myself, but I know what they can do for the body.
that is so interesting. I've never heard of foot zoning. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, try it. It's also called reflexology. So reflexology or foot zoning.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
She made me do this egg cleanse once, and I thought that was really strange.
Egg
But I
cleanse, I haven't heard of
I,
that.
I looked into it. It's like it's really interesting. So I guess you wash an egg, you rub it all over yourself, and, like, I guess command it to subliminally to get rid of the bad energy.
Oh,
And you
cool.
break the egg into, like, this cup of water, and you have to look it up. But basically, how the egg and the yolk or whatever forms when you drop it into the water can tell you a little bit about yourself, and things
Wow.
like that. And it's I believe it because right when I did that, a week later, I found out, like, oh, I was diagnosed with COVID because it told me that I was sick.
And
Wow.
and so isn't that crazy? So, but yeah,
No, that's crazy.
I'm super into it, and I've been trying to get. I mean, I think people like you and me, when we
Mhm.
struggle with some of those things like that, you really want to try everything just to feel better, and you kind of get jealous of people who just go about their lives feeling just normal. But sometimes it feels like I have this huge weight on my chest, and it's like you've gone through it for so long, you don't know what it feels like to just have like a calm day, if that makes sense.
No, exactly. And then when you finally, after all this work that you put in, though, the one like amazing thing I have to say is like after you put in all this heavy, heavy work without seeing any like results right away, once you do see that result, it is the green on the other side. It is absolutely amazing. And I really feel like I've actually, if anything, this past week specifically have started to see the green on the other side or the light at the end of the tunnel. And I am so grateful
Mm,
for the work that I was putting in without seeing results right away. And I think that's the hardest thing is working and working, not getting results right away because we all want instant gratification. For the work we're putting in, like, you take a test, you get your grade back. That's
right.
not how it is with mental health. You need to work, work, work. And then eventually, and after you keep up with it consistently, you will see the benefit.
What have you learned about yourself after putting in all that work?
After putting in all that work, I've definitely realized my triggers. That's a huge thing. I've realized my faults and my character defects. So I've been able to, pinpoint, like I was mentioning earlier, when I get jealous of someone, how that affects my relationship with that person.
Mm,
I've definitely been able to empower myself more and be more self-efficient, because a lot of the time I've been codependent and dependent on other people or have been sucked into maybe bad relationships where my partner has had undiagnosed mental health issues, and that is not a good mix when you have two people undiagnosed with mental health issues
mm,
that aren't willing to see the problem.
absolutely.
And so that was a huge thing. And just honestly, just getting ahead and just realizing like you have people that love you, you have people that are there for you. Even in your darkest, deepest lows, and you truly don't believe that, they are there. And yeah, just staying grateful for those kinds of people is huge for me. Practicing gratitude is like the number one thing. When you're experiencing gratitude, you are unable to experience any other emotion, including guilt, shame, depression, sadness, anger, things of that sort, jealousy.
Mm, you are you, ooh, amen. That was
But in
that was beautiful. I really do agree. I mean, one thing that I learned in my process was similar to yours. You know, yours is kind of your triggers, and mine is similar, but I would word it as my boundaries. So
Mm,
I really learned what my boundaries are and kind of what I do want to be a part of and what I don't want to be a part of. And you know, I had someone speak to me recently that it was a family member, and he was telling me about some things he's going through, and it was but with him it's such a process of it, like a kind of a draining process that he wants to suck you down in with him in
mhm.
kind of that negative state. And I listened to him, but I wasn't really engaging in that. And
Yeah,
normally I would, but I was like, you know what? I think my boundary is right now is letting you go through that and giving you my support, but I'm not going to go down that path with you, if that makes sense.
no, that makes perfect sense.
You know, I just want a little bit of boundary in my life, and I think some of that of healing your your anxiety is about like recognizing the things that are in your life that you don't like. And speaking of that, I mean, like you mentioned relationships with people. When you're in a romantic relationship, do you think that your own mental health has kind of affected that end as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have two people alone, and then you have those two people together. There's always going to be changes, no matter what it is. I think the important thing is realizing when a relationship is affecting your mental health negatively. And those are the worst situations to be in because you can still have love for someone that is not good for you or good for your mental health at that time.
Mm,
And so I think that's the most difficult thing. But like I said, it's just self-realization, self-awareness of what are my triggers, what's going on, um, uh, what can I do to help this situation? And if it comes back to the same thing every single time, the same card every single time, I've had to end a relationship over that. And it was extremely difficult and painful. And I had more mental health issues after that because of it.
right.
Uh, but more so, I'm healed now and I'm able to look back at that lesson and I know I won't put myself through that again.
Mm. And so as of right now, I mean, you sound like you're on the right track, and you sound like you're good. I mean, are there times that
Yeah.
you still feel a little, depressive here and there, or do you feel like you kind of gotten to the point where you're able to manage it and you're able to kind of move past it?
Yeah. Well, like I said, really, this past week specifically, I've been able to kind of break through some barriers I've had with myself and just a lot of self-care, My sister, she came home from work and she felt compelled to like run outside and have this conversation with me. And one of the things she was telling me, she's like, all this work that you're doing right now is something that your future self is going to be so grateful for. And just the fact that she's able to see these huge differences, even if I'm not able to see those differences yet, is huge for me. And so I really feel like this past week I've been good, honestly. Things are still hard right now. I'm still dealing with life. I don't have a car. Um, I need to get a car to be able to make it to work, to make money, to pay for the car, in this like little cycle. And then my health issues with my gallbladder. That was just out of the blue. And now I don't have an organ. I'm missing an organ. That's so crazy.
Mm,
So, like, life's gonna always throw you those things. It's never gonna stop throwing you things. But how you deal with it is like the real progress and how you can really map that.
mm, mm. I really, what happened this week specifically, if you don't mind me asking, that kind of made that breakthrough for you?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really realize until like a few days afterwards, like what had happened. But it was August 27th. It was my grandfather's birthday, who passed away 5 years ago, and my mom's death date, who had passed away 9 years ago.
Mm.
And so that's always been a really heavy day. Like I said, that was the line I crossed 5 years
Oh,
ago.
they passed away on the same day.
Well, no, it was my grandfather's birthday. So my mom passed away on my grandpa's birthday, on
Uh,
her dad's birthday. Yeah. So, so I don't know, just I woke up that day and that has been my I entitlement, my I deserve to do this on this day because this happened to me and self-pity, self-pity, self-pity.
right.
And that day specifically was probably the first day that I haven't self-followed. I was able to really embody like this gift that like these people have given me in my life and like these lessons that I've been able to learn from them. And I wasn't giving myself self-pity. I wasn't pitying myself. I was able to enjoy my day. I wasn't um wallowing. I wasn't like my grieving process was like finally like getting towards the acceptance stage. And so I really feel like that was it, honestly, just accepting, this really hard thing that happened to me on this day. Um and just kind of moving forward with that and taking that with me, not forgetting it, not drowning it in alcohol, not like stomping on it, but actually just accepting it and taking it with me. And I really think I made that breakthrough a couple days ago on the 27th.
Congratulations. That's really amazing to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, that is awesome. I know I'm really happy you're doing well because um number one, I think it's inspiring, and if I can add on that, one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you is we've spoke before in the past, but I think you're a very beautiful woman, and I think people can see people on Instagram or something and say, well, they clearly aren't worried about anything in their life, and But but I think that's kind of a misconception. Like, we all have our things that we're going through, and even beautiful people can struggle too, right? And clearly there's been some struggles in your life and mine, and it's the aspect of how much you were willing to share today, which I'm so very appreciative over. And
Thank you.
I'm just so happy that you're doing well. It's really hard to struggle with, especially death. And I really can't imagine what that must be like for you. And so what type of support system do you have right now? I mean, do you have still a good family around you? And
Yeah, well, so I basically was spiritually adopted into this amazing and beautiful family. So I live with Nisha. She's basically my sister. She treats me like a sister. Her family treats me like family. I spend holidays with them. So they've been my huge support system. So I live with her and her husband. I still have my brother back in my hometown. I love him to absolute death. And then her whole family has just been huge on me. Her mom was my soccer coach and chemistry teacher in high school. Her dad was my track coach. And both of them have helped me countless and many times throughout the years. And just the invitation that they have for me to join their family on every day, honestly, but specifically like holidays, which are hardest for me, I can never stop being grateful for them and what they have done for me. So that's a huge support system for me.
Mm. And so what's your advice for anyone who's listening who kind of might be going through some a similar situation of kind of what you went through? I mean, do you have a certain you've given a lot of examples of how you were able to better yourself, but specifically listening to the girl or boy in your situation, what would you say to them?
Yeah, definitely get the help. There's a huge stigma on it, and it's such a wrong stigma. Get the help. If you need help, get the help, and it's not weak. My problem was looking weak. You are not weak for asking for help. Asking for help is one of the strongest things you can do and the most courageous things you can do. Just there's resources everywhere you look. You just have to want it bad enough. You want the mental health bad enough to get them. So get the help, honestly. That would be my words for myself in my situation years ago.
And what's next for you? Like, what are you up to?
Getting a car. I need a car. I'm looking into really just spending these next couple months catching up on the financial stress of COVID, the lovely shutdown.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to be looking into making some money, hours, jobs, putting in the work, working out. I can't wait that my gyms are open here. I'm going to get back into lifting. I love lifting. So I'm very excited.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
And there's some announcements I'm going to be making on my podcast soon about some mental health programs I've been working with, and I'm going to reach out to you personally because with some of these resources, there might be something available for you as far as a car.
Oh, awesome.
A car or something like that, or helping out. But yeah, Brittany, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. My main goal is to spread mental health awareness, and I really felt like you helped me with that today. And I couldn't agree with you more. It's nice to know that people aren't alone, first of all, but it's really important to let people know that you're not weak for getting the help. And there's so many resources out there that can really help you. And once you get the help, you'll feel so much better for it.
Exactly. 100%.
So thank you so much. And where can people find you online?
Like Instagram, social media.
Yeah.
So Instagram, Bennett_Brittany. There's only one way to spell it, so spell it the right way and you'll figure it out.
All right, and we won't tell you the right way. You just have to know.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Kendall. I appreciate everything.
No, thank you. And we'll talk soon.
Yes, sounds good.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.